we have the full cold moon at 23 degrees of Gemini, happening on December 15th at 1:01 a.m. Pacific, which would be 4:01 a.m. Eastern. Check your local time to see when this lunar event is occurring for you. Welcome to the final full moon of 2024. And let's just say we're leaving 2024 with a bang, considering all the transits that are occurring around this moon, aspecting this moon, and the chart ruler of this moon. Well, we have two chart rulers for the moon since it's a full moon, but the chart ruler of this moon also happens to be retrograde. It's in its last day of retrograde as this full moon is occurring. So this should add some extra kick to this already spicy full moon in itself. Also, we're in December, and so December's full moon is known as the cold moon. One of the reasons why this moon got its name is its association with the longest night of the year, which is coming up within the next bunch of days. Usually this moon coincides with Yule and usually comes a few days before the 21st. This name has more of an association with the Northern Hemisphere, considering this time of year it's generally cold for a lot of us. Spiritually, this represents a time where even if you feel abundant, it's good to be mindful not to exert extra energy. So this is a time to set aside what you need to have fun, but also to be mindful of being too frivolous. And this is also because usually this time of year is associated with a lack of resources or some scarcity. So it's a time to not squander our time, energy, and resources. Also with this moon, we have an interesting set of vibes on the graph. Romance is going to be abundant for 48 hours and mix in with mental tones. So this could be a time to really analyze if your romantic situations are giving you exactly what you need, if you're gaining any sort of value from them, and also getting the flirtiness and the amorous exchanges that you deserve. Because on top of that, emotional sensitivity will be present on the 17th, and there could be moments where we feel extra triggered in some of our relationships. The romantic ones may be more to the forefront, but it could also be our close one-on-one relationships as well. But yeah, here we are. We've reached the point of the lunar cycle where we're at its peak. So think about how far you've come since the new moon in Gemini back on June 6th of this year. What kind of Gemini themes were you adopting in your life at that point in time? Full moons are a period where we assess the last 6 months to see how far we've come in a specific zodiac sign, and of course this being Gemini, looking how far we've come in terms of the intentions we set during that time, some of the qualities we wanted to adopt, and other seeds we planted that we wanted to grow once we got to this full moon period. Because full moon periods are a time to look at what's working, what needs to be tweaked, and letting the situations that are no longer serving us fall off. So what new chapters have you created in your life? How have you rewritten your script? How have you changed your narrative overall? And how have you turned the page on your story in life? Gemini energy encourages us to pen a new story or chapter in our lives, especially if the old one has gotten dull, restrictive, or stagnant, and or where we need a mindset shift. So this could have been a period to look at our options, change our perspectives, and truly just to set out and create new stories for our lives because we're ready to become more adaptable and embrace the new. One of the big themes could have been working on communication. Gemini is about our interpersonal skills, and so was this a time where you were trying to improve that? Was this a time where you were trying to become more social or create situations where you had more variety in your social life? Maybe you wanted to work on being wittier. Maybe you wanted to work on your emotional intelligence. So that way you learn the art of reading the room and adjusting yourself to other people's energies, but also learning how to be really engaging and funny and warm in conversations. And even bringing an intellectual tone to the way you communicate with others. And speaking of that, was this a period where you were working on your mental capacity? In other words, were you working on improving your intellectual side? That way you're stimulating your mind, but also you have something to bring to the table in conversations. Maybe this was a time to become more receptive to new ideas instead of being closed off and taking a less rigid approach when it comes down to whatever you're taking in. That way you improve your brain power by learning new subjects, or maybe this was a time to develop your analytical skills so you can quickly grasp new subjects and concepts. And even though we connect with the cerebral side of us when we are looking at Gemini energy, we also look at ways where we can be breezier and have more fun in our lives. And this can go back to socializing. This can go back to bringing variety into our lives with different types of stimuli. Stimuli could be meeting new people, finding cool new adventures to embark on, checking out our local scene to see what we might have been missing within our neighborhoods or our city, reconnecting with our youthful side, and embracing our inner teenager in a constructive way. but truly just learning how to be breezier and to just have fun in life and to let our curiosity run wild so that way we're discovering new things and stimulating the different facets of ourselves. Sometimes this could also be about finding the right environment. Maybe we've been stuck in an environment that just doesn't suit us any longer. And because Gemini is one of the travel signs, just like Sagittarius, Gemini is about local travel, Sagittarius is about long distance travel. Maybe this is a time where you're needing to move neighborhoods. Maybe this is a time where you're needing to move cities because you're ready to find the right location that stimulates you and totally suits your vibes. Gemini energy shows us where we're confined and where we need variety and why it's so unwise to put all of our eggs in one basket. And so if you chose to adopt these qualities of Gemini, hopefully you're seeing some flourishment in these areas and you're no longer feeling limited and you've created multiple sources of reserves for yourself. So you never run out of enjoyable things and other forms of resources in your life. Let's look at these transits and see what we can expect from this lunar event. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps this channel grow. Also, if you're looking for a natal chart reading or intuitive coaching, the links will be in the description box below. And if you'd like to support the work of this channel, you could do so by buying me a fresh cup of coffee. The link will be in the description box below as well. So, kind of how I was saying earlier, this lunar event has a lot of kick to it, and both chart rulers are in interesting situations. Interesting situations being both chart rulers are retrograde. One just happens to be stationing, which is Mercury. Both chart rulers are interacting with each other in an opposition and creating a T-square to Saturn, but also something else is happening here, and both rulers are in mutual reception, which is great considering the conditions they're in. Jupiter happens to be in a place it doesn't like to be. Mercury happens to be in a place it doesn't like to be. And so they generally run into snags when they're in each other's signs, but because they're in mutual reception, they're lending some energy to each other. And so this mitigates some of the harsher tones that are going on. Mercury is currently in Sagittarius, and Jupiter is currently in Gemini, and so we've got kind of a sign swap going on here. But with this scenario, they're lending some extra energy and power to one another, hopefully mitigating some of this T-square energy that we have going to Saturn. And so with all of this, we could feel like we're at a tug of war when it comes down to our beliefs, when it comes down to the way we communicate, when it comes down to getting realistic about things. And also thrown in for good measure is Pluto. Jupiter's in a sesquiquadrate quadrate to Pluto while it's in this T-square. And so we'll really need to be aware about blowing things out of proportion, getting too power struggly with people, checking ourselves when it comes to greed, and other issues with our ego as well. Speaking of which, Jupiter also happens to be in an opposition with the Sun, so it could be a time where we're really having to check wafting levels of arrogance with ourselves or dealing with people who like to throw their weight around. On top of that, the Sun and the Moon are making hard alignments to Neptune, which is also creating a T-square. This is going to be a period where things seem foggier than typical. This is going to be a period where we might feel as though we're not able to make heads or tails of certain situations. And so we'll have to be really mindful not to act impulsively or act on narratives or other stories that we're creating in our head that may not be based in fact, especially since Venus is also involved with this along with Uranus. Some of that could be piecing things together in relationships or acting impulsively in our relationships, whether that's romantic or platonic. And also being mindful of our spending as well, because sometimes with energy like this, our wasteful side can be revved up more than typical. And so we definitely need to make sure we're not making impulsive decisions when it comes down to finances. But at least Mercury is in a harmonious alignment with the nodes, Venus and Mars. So even if we're having all of these difficulties from some of the other aspects, we may be able to push through and shake off some of our old habits, shake off some of our old behaviors, especially within relationships and how we take action on things. So if we're taking a wrong turn, this may motivate us to pivot and do things that are going to be in our best interests. So yeah, definitely a spicy lunar event. And so all of this energy is going to feel particularly tense, and hopefully we're able to push through some of that with some of the mitigations that I was mentioning before. The signs that will feel this more than others will be the mutable modality. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces between 20 to 29 degrees of these zodiac placements. So if you have planets and chart points in any of these signs, you'll feel this lunar event more potently than others. Anyway, I hope you all have a constructive full moon in Gemini later and see you in the next episode.